welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast with your host, Sana. I'm back with another episode to help you navigate the roller coaster of life with grace, growth, and maybe a few giggles along the way. Today's guest is someone who truly knows how to turn life's messiest emotions into a masterpiece. Joining us is the incredible Leslie Lindsay Davis, a best selling author whose books like You Can't Eat Love and The Journey from Feeling to Healing have touched hearts and transformed lives. Leslie's upcoming book, What Color Is My Shirt? Honoring Your Emotions, promises to be another game changer, helping us connect with our feelings and, more importantly, ourselves. She's here to spill the tea on how to feel your honest emotions honestly. Yes, there is a difference there, and why embracing those feelings is the key to unlocking your best life. So, buckle up for a heartwarming, laughter filled journey as Leslie shares her own transformative story, sprinkled with wit, wisdom, and maybe even a bit about why she once wore a garlic necklace. So, grab a comfy seat, your favorite beverage, and let's dive into an episode full of inspiration, real talk, and actionable steps to start loving yourself like never before. Leslie, welcome to the show, and it is an absolute honor to have you with us today.
Well, Sana, thank you so much. And I love that you approach this topic with giggles because so many times there's so many people who believe that this needs to be a solemn subject, and it's not. If we could laugh and learn along the way, I believe that we learn and embrace these kinds of topics so much easier.
True, that's true. Well, Leslie, of course, our listeners would love to know what exactly you mean by honestly feeling your emotions. And why do you think it is so important in today's, busy, buttoned up, boxed world?
Well, let me ask this question. How many times have you told someone what you were honestly feeling, and their response to you was, you shouldn't be feeling that way?
When I did that, I actually got that answer only. That's why I always try to suppress my honest emotions or honest feelings inside because those can be really raw.
Exactly. And so if someone that you know, like, and trust and believes that, and you believe that that person only wants the best in the world for you, you're going to start questioning what your true feeling is. If this is what I'm feeling, but this person is telling me I should not be feeling that, what should I be feeling? And because it's somebody that we know, like, and trust and believe only wants the best for us, we start doubting our honest emotion. And what happens then is internally a tension starts building, and we have to do something to release that tension. But the other thing is when somebody comes along beside us and they're an emotionally healthy person, and they are being honest with us, we don't trust what they are saying because the people that we know, like, and trust and we believe only want the best for us have taught us that we cannot trust our true emotions. So I'm on a mission to help people recognize what they honestly feel is what they honestly feel. And it's important that you honestly express, at least to yourself, your honest emotion so that you can release that internal tension. Because let's be honest, not to overuse the word, internal tension can lead to some really, really self-destructive behaviors. It can lead to depression, it can lead to cutting, it can even lead to suicide.
Yep, that's true. That's true. Well, when you asked me the question, I answered you straight away. After that, I quickly thought about my childhood, my early days when I actually didn't know what I was saying, just whatever came within me. Maybe I used to say that, and my parents used to say, "Oh, you cannot say things like that. You cannot think like that. This is how you should actually rightfully think." So you rightfully said, explained it, Leslie.
Well, and if you reflect back on your childhood and you think about those moments when you would share with your parents what you were thinking, what you were feeling, and when they told you that you cannot feel that way, can you remember how you felt internally? Can you remember the confusion that you felt in that moment?
Of course, I would feel sad, discouraged, confusion, yeah. A lot of confusion. And then that entire conditioning thing used to happen. And I had to relearn how to express that, or maybe how to just keep it within me.
Well, and one of the things that I discovered is it's more important that I'm honest with myself about what I'm honestly feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And as I like to say, let's stop doing emotions by committee. When we share with someone else what we are honestly feeling and their response is not exactly the most helpful or healthy response, we don't need to pick that up. We can just let it fall on the floor because your feelings are your feelings and nobody else gets a vote. So if we can learn that when we share with someone else who may not be as emotionally intellectual or as emotionally healthy or emotionally aware as we are, and their response is not exactly what we were hoping for, we can recognize that despite their response, our feeling is still our feeling, and we don't need to explain it. We don't need to justify it. We simply need to stand in our truth and just let their comments fall on the floor, and we don't worry about it. We just keep moving forward.
Correct. I agree with you. So, Leslie, your journey to self love began with a pivotal decision in 2014 to rediscover yourself. Would you like to share a bit about that journey, and also what advice would you give someone who feels stuck but is really afraid to take that first step?
Well, for me, I hit a moment in my life where it was like an emotional tsunami, and I was slammed down to the bottom of the Marianas Trench and didn't think I was going to surface. But when I finally did get to the surface, I realized that I could go one of two ways. I could either continue down the path that I was going, that was not going to lead to anything good, or I could make a conscious choice to become the best version of myself and get healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally. I thought that the mental and emotional part was going to be the easy work. Well, it wasn't. It was the hard work. And the reason it was hard is I was having to undo so many learned myths, so many learned beliefs that were not just from my immediate family, but generational. Our emotional health is established generationally. And as I was sharing with a friend of mine who is from Asian descent, emotional beliefs are hardwired into DNA. And when we start going against that DNA, that's what sets off tension inside of us because we believe that we are denying our past, our family, and things like that. So I would say to people who make the decision that they want to get healthy emotionally and mentally, the easiest way to do that is to get a notebook, not an 8.5 by 11 notebook, but a smaller notebook, and start having written conversations with yourself and start becoming acquainted with yourself and start becoming acquainted little by little with what you're truly and honestly feeling. And as you are writing your true and honest feelings, acknowledge them. Well, of course you feel that way. Write that down. Well, of course I feel that way. Why wouldn't I feel that way? This is what I do. I actually have written conversations with myself back and forth I acknowledge my feelings. I get curious. Well, what is really going on that I'm feeling this way in this moment? And because I'm not having to justify what I'm feeling to anyone, I'm able to work through the feeling. I'm able to learn the vocabulary of emotions. And not that I did not know the vocabulary of emotions, I didn't know the vocabulary of my emotions. So this gives me a safe space to become acquainted with what I am really feeling, why I'm really feeling it. When was the first time that I can remember this feeling? What was going on? Who were the people around me? What did I desire the outcome to be? And then to work my way through it and say, you know what? I am so sad that you didn't get what you were looking for in that moment. I wish I could have given it to you, but you know what? Right here, right now, I hear what you're saying. I believe what you're saying. Let's give ourselves that permission to affirm our own self so that we can stop looking for that affirmation outside of ourselves. And then when we share with someone our honest feeling and their response is, you shouldn't be feeling that way, we can simply stand there and smile as we observe their words falling on the floor with a thud and a splat and splashing back on their shoes.
Got it. That absolutely makes sense. But Leslie, some people would argue that focusing too much on emotions can lead to overthinking and maybe inaction. So how would you respond to that perspective?
I would respond to that by saying develop a time of day when you sit down and you had these written conversations with yourself. Because let's be really, really honest. We are constantly thinking inside of our head. Our emotions are constantly being a focus of what we are focusing on, especially if we are feeling unheard. We are constantly allowing that noise to bump around so that we are not able to move forward and take action in our lives. So if you establish a time of day and you set a timer for 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, where you had that written conversation, then you're able to get that noise out of your head onto the paper and then move forward so that you're not, instead of constantly focusing on your emotions, what you're doing is you're acknowledging what you're really feeling, and then you're able to leave it right there. Because when we do not feel heard, we become desperate to be heard.
Right. That's right. Many of us suppress emotions out of fear or shame, and especially in my culture or in Indian families, it has been very, very much relevant. Not much of a communicative or communication happens among family members, so a lot of emotions are suppressed. So how can we start to safely acknowledge and process those feelings without becoming overwhelmed?
Well, it goes back to what I've already said. If you have those written conversations, then you don't need someone else to validate you. But the other thing that starts happening is you start developing a relationship with yourself, an honest relationship with yourself. You start acknowledging what you're honestly feeling. And it is so imperative that you be honest with your honest feelings, regardless of how ugly they are, because your feelings are your feelings, and nobody else is going to get a vote. And the other thing is, let's acknowledge, let's accept that no one can make you feel anything. How many times do we say, so-and-so made me mad, so-and-so made me happy, so-and-so made me whatever, fill in the blank? Truthfully, it's a choice. We can choose to be mad. We can choose to be happy. We can choose to simply allow their words, their actions, or whatever to fall without having any impact on us. And what I like to tell people is nobody can make me anything, well, except reservations for dinner, and I prefer at a 5-star restaurant, and you pick up the tab. But if we can be honest, and I understand about your culture, it's even in my own family. Here in the U.S., we don't talk about our feelings. We don't talk about our emotions. We don't talk about any of it, that kind of stuff. So it's really critical. For me, it was critical that I was able to start acknowledging my own feelings. And the way that I was able to do that was in writing. And I tell people, please be honest with your honest feelings. And the example that I give is one day I was having my written conversation and I was dancing around a subject because I was so angry with someone and the hurt that they had caused and the division and everything else that they had done as a consequence of their actions. And finally I wrote, "Who are you lying to?" And then I paused because I was pulled up short. And I wrote, "I'm lying to myself." And then I wrote, "Stop lying." And I wrote, "I wish this person would go ahead and die." They were ill at the time. Now that sounds really harsh and really cruel, but you know what? That was my honest feeling in that moment. And once I wrote it down and I observed it and I released it, then I was able to move forward. It was no longer consuming me in the background, but that was how I felt in that moment. And that's why I say it is so critical, so imperative. Be honest with your honest emotion, no matter how ugly it is, because it is your honest emotion and your body knows what you are honestly feeling. So let's get our mind to line up, to acknowledge it, to affirm it, so we can allow it to release and we can move forward.
Correct. Can't agree with more. So your story, Leslie, it is so relatable. Feeling unloved, dealing with loss, and questioning worthiness. Would you like to share a bit about your personal journey, and also how did these challenges or those moments shape the way you approach life and emotions today?
Well, growing up, I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and my brother's a year younger than I am. And I always felt as if I was never enough, being a girl and then, the boy, the next one down. I always felt that they were disappointed, that I was a disappointment. And then our mother died. It's 40 years now. And I had a baby 2 weeks later, my first child, her first grandchild. So I felt as if I was a failure in that respect because the baby wasn't born in time for her to meet the baby. And also, my husband's family was all excited about having a baby, and I didn't know how to grieve my mother. I just thought, you pick up, you get on, you just keep moving forward. And what I didn't know at that time was the destruction of not acknowledging what you're honestly feeling, the destruction that can be laid in the wake of that. And so as I'm plowed through my life for the next 30 years, not feeling, the problem with not feeling is it only takes a little tiny straw to break that proverbial camel's back and a volcano would erupt, which I never really understood. I didn't know that it was that ungrieved grief, that unresolved feeling of never being enough, that unmet need for feeling as if I was loved. And when I had that emotional tsunami, I thought nobody loved me. And what I came to recognize was the only person who did not love me was me. And that was really when I began the journey to discover who Leslie really is and become friends with her and discover, oh my gosh, she is really an amazing person. She's insightful. She is funny. And I am so grateful every day that I get to know her, that I get to be with her. And I say to people who are struggling, who feel as if nobody is loving them, really get honest with yourself. Do you love yourself? And if you're feeling as if you are unlovable, then let me just tell you right now, you are an amazing person. You're incredible. Your benefit in this world is unlimited. The people that you are surrounded by, they need your wit, your wisdom, your insight. And I'm going to tell you also right now in this moment, whether you believe it or not, I believe you are enough exactly as you are. And tomorrow you're going to be someplace else. But let's start getting honest with how we honestly feel. And then we can start seeing transformation in the world, because when we are honest with our honest feelings, then we are able to come alongside someone else who is struggling. We're able to sit quietly and to listen to them and to simply acknowledge what they are feeling, what they are thinking, by saying, of course you feel that way. Why wouldn't you? That doesn't mean that we agree with them. It simply means that we are acknowledging that what they are feeling is their honest feeling. And can you imagine how liberating that would be?
Right. Yeah. And altogether different feeling. Wow. Wow, Leslie. So thank you for sharing your journey, and also that was really, really very encouraging, very heartwarming to know. So now talking about your books, they emphasize self-love and boundaries also. So can you share how boundaries play a role in honestly feeling and also honoring emotions?
Well, one of the things that I discovered is there are actually two boundaries in our lives. There's the boundary with ourselves and there's the boundary with the rest of the world. And when we start getting honest with our true emotions, then we are establishing that boundary that it doesn't make any difference what somebody else says about our feeling. We dismiss the shouldn'ts of the world. And when we had that clear boundary with ourselves, that our feeling is our feeling and nobody else is going to get a vote about it, then what we are reflecting to the world is that they don't get a vote or a say in how we are feeling. So, for example, the easiest way to explain that is when we talk about ourselves to other people in a negative way, that gives other people permission to speak to us in a negative way. So if we change that philosophy and we start acknowledging and voicing our true and honest feeling, and then we stand there very quietly when somebody tells us that we shouldn't, or, they dismiss our emotion or our feeling, we stand there quietly. What we are saying to them is, you don't get a vote on how I'm feeling. We don't need to justify or explain our true emotion, but the most important boundary that we need to establish is that with ourselves, with being honest with ourselves about what we are honestly feeling. When we establish that boundary with ourselves, when we are secure with our true and honest feeling, then whatever somebody else has to say is not going to change our boundary. And what we're going to be doing is standing there quietly, possibly smiling at them, or just simply looking at them or turning away or whatever. But we are not going to allow them to sway our emotion, because we know it's what we're truly feeling. And so as a result, that boundary between us and the world starts getting stronger. But the added benefit is then they are going to start questioning themselves, and that's okay.
So, Leslie, another fact which I would like to share with our listeners, that you are also associated with the GUTAS International, which is Get Up and Take a Step. So, would you like to share a bit about that, and also about your upcoming book, which is What Color is My Shirt? Trusting Your Emotions.
But GUTS began back in 2015 when I met two young women in Zimbabwe, both of whom were struggling. One, her husband had gone to South Africa to make a living, but then created his own family down there. Another was taking care of her two nieces, and her sister suddenly died from a heart attack. And so she was left with the two nieces. And in Zimbabwe, there is no social system or anything like that. So they were both struggling. But they both, one had an incredible talent for sewing, the other was learning. And what I recognized when I met them was that there were other people like them, other women like them, who needed to increase their self-esteem, their belief in themselves. And Mercy, which is the name of one of the women, and I were having a conversation, and she was sharing with me about her struggle. And I asked her the question, Mercy, do you know what you did? And she said, no, Auntie, what did I do? I said, Mercy, you got up and you took a step. You took a step, towards economic freedom, towards improving your feeling of self-worth, and you are impacting the next generation because you are demonstrating to your daughters that you can do this. Right. And so we started teaching other women who were struggling how to sew. And now they go out, into their communities and they're making a living. And right now, but for the past 6 or 7 years, Zimbabwe's really been a disaster. But these women have an ability, they have a skill, they believe in their self-worth, they believe in their self-image, and they're stronger now than they would have been. And as a consequence, they are making a living. They are able to take care of their families, but they're also changing the next generation because they're demonstrating that you don't have to accept. You don't have to accept what's right in front of you. And then I forgot what your second question was. Oh, what color is my shirt? The reason for writing that book is, just as I asked you earlier, how many times have you told someone what you were thinking and they said to you, you shouldn't be feeling that way? And I think it is so important that people learn how to be honest with their honest emotions and to understand that what they honestly feel is what they honestly feel, no matter how ugly it is. That it's so important, because not feeling heard and not acknowledging our emotions causes tension. And the internal tension can build to the point that it leads to depression, it leads to self-harm, it can even lead to suicide. And it's time that we start making friends with our emotions, or at least becoming acquainted with them, and acknowledge what we are really feeling, and not be looking to the outside world for the acknowledgement that we can give. Because even if I were to give you a script to follow, oftentimes you would not be giving back to me exactly what I wanted, and I would be distrustful, possibly, of what you were doing. So until we can trust ourselves, we're not really going to trust someone else.
Right. That's right. Lovely, lovely. That was indeed such an inspiring and beautiful story you shared with us. And of course, our listeners would love to get access to your upcoming books and your current books as well. So before we wrap up, Leslie, if our listeners, they want to connect with you and explore more about your books, your podcasts, and the work you are doing in making us be aware about our honest emotions, how they can do that.
The best way to find out anything about me is to go to the website, which is youcan'teatlove.com. And there is also a place where you can message me, email me, and I do respond. It's not an assistant or anything like that. It's actually me that responds. And I love to hear from readers and listeners. So please do reach out, and let's see what we can do about creating people with healthy emotions all around the world. Let's change the world.
Lovely, lovely. Exactly. Let's change the world. What an incredible conversation, Leslie, it was. And thank you so much for sharing your heartfelt wisdom and for reminding us of all the power of truly honoring our emotions. And of course, your journey, your insights, they're beautiful examples to the transformative magic of self-love and connection. So thank you so much, Leslie, for sharing.
Well, thank you, Sana. This has been a great conversation. You're doing amazing work. Please keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. And listeners, if today's episode inspired you to pause, reflect, and maybe even embrace those emotions you have been avoiding, take that as your sign to dig a little deeper. And remember, you are not alone on this journey. And the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. So if you loved this episode, be sure to check out Leslie's books. And trust me, they're packed with the same warmth and wisdom you heard today from her. And as always, if this conversation resonated with you, please leave us a review, share it with a friend, or let us know your biggest takeaway. Until next time, stay mindful, stay kind to yourself, and remember, feeling your emotions is the bravest thing you can do. See you soon on the Mindful Living. Thank you.